I didn't even have to watch this one, to be honest. I did for the integrity of the podcast.
Yeah, but you've seen it?
Man, I've seen this movie so many times.
Huh.
I've seen this movie at least 10 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's kind of a staple. It's kind of a staple at
Yeah.
our place. Welcome to VCR, a vintage cinema rewind. We're bringing old movies to new viewers.
Yes, we are. I'm Jason.
You stumbled through that one.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
Blake. You forget who you were?
Yeah, for a second there. Are we going to redo it?
Nah, that's good
No?
enough.
All right.
We don't got
No,
time for that.
I had something to add, though.
Oh, okay. Well, add it now.
All right.
I'm going to clip it really awkward.
And this week, we're exploring our romantic side with each other, separately, but also together, and with all of you.
Separately, but also together.
Yeah, but
Mostly separately.
mostly separately, but we're doing it together, right? Our romantic side.
Wait, what are we doing together?
We might end up going speed walking unironically. We'll see.
Those were some great speed walking
Oh,
shots.
yeah. They were all like hips right into it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All
That
right.
must be like a New York thing.
Yeah, or an 80s thing.
Or an 80s thing.
Yeah,
For sure. I can picture that. Remember that really hairy guy with like the hair coming out and he would do like that yoga stuff? He'd be like,
Yeah,
"Come on,
yeah.
ladies."
Is it Bob Ross? No.
No, it's not Bob Ross. That's the
Something
other
else
guy.
Ross.
Is it?
I think so.
All right, this is show notes for next week then.
All right,
We're
let's
going to figure this out.
yeah. All right, let's actually get into this.
All right. So, yeah, we're talking 80s this week. The 1989 smash hit When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally is an imperfect love story that spans 12 years. It's exploring the concept of if men and women can be friends. It's very character-based and dialogue-driven. We see a fresh perspective for the time on the classic rom-com format. We're following Harry and Sally through a lens of realism instead of pure romanticism that is very charming and relatable.
Yeah, and this is a classic rom-com pure. Like, a lot of the movies that come later, and I've got a few examples, borrow a lot of the DNA and tropes of this film.
Yeah, and this was very fresh at the time because everything pre When Harry Met Sally was just so romantic, just like love at first sight. Everything was perfect. There was just like one little blip throughout
like that drama in the second act that is like, oh, are they going to get together and not together in the third act?
Whereas this is so relatable to so many people, and it was just so new at the time. And now, when we're watching like almost any rom-com since, it pulls a lot from this.
Yeah, and that says a lot about the film and
very impactful.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to talk about the legacy bits a little bit later. Yeah, I think you nailed it with the plot. So let's move into characters and people you may know. First, we got to start with, obviously, Harry and Sally. Harry is played by Billy Crystal. And you may know Billy Crystal from a lot of older movies, to be honest. He was the old kind of mad scientist guy in The Princess Bride with a ton of makeup. You wouldn't actually know it was him.
Yeah, you can't recognize him, but his comedy is like so there in that.
Yeah. Also in City Slickers and Analyze This, more recently he voiced Mike Wazowski in Monsters, Inc.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so that's where that voice is that you're going to know him
Yeah.
And the character Harry is a very interesting character. He's a very pessimistic, depressed kind of individual, but he has so much great comedy and self-depreciating humor.
Yeah. Self-deprecating, yeah.
Yeah, so much self-deprecating humor.
There you go.
Depreciating
Slowly,
over time.
Slowly over time.
Yeah, it gets less good. No, but from start to finish, Billy Crystal was meant for this role. And I'm going to talk a little bit about effects and filming because there's kind of actually some interesting stories about how this film came to be and his involvement in that a little bit later.
Yeah, he seemed very natural, like just perfect for the role. And that's what, like, the character development and the things that the actors brought to the roles really solidified the performance.
Yeah, that's really what drives home how important this movie is, or how relevant it will always be, is because of the chemistry that Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan have with each other on film together. And so that brings us to Meg Ryan next, who plays Sally.
Yeah, so coming from the designer of her clothing, the clothing designer, if you will, of her character, and so she's a strong person with lots of individuality. She's chic but sensible. She's
the worst kind. She's high maintenance, but she thinks she's low maintenance.
Yes, and that's a quote from the movie, and she was shocked to hear that, but she really is, in a certain sense. I would say both Harry and Sally are, to a certain degree, a character trope of men and women at the beginning.
Yeah.
And how they clash. And I think they were kind of taking that from like the classic romantic styled movie. And the growth that we see over this 12-year period in each of them, and how they view each other, how they view the world, how they view men and women really grows. So she's the classic leading lady.
Yeah. And she's a really great leading lady too. Like her acting's fantastic. I really enjoy Meg Ryan, and I think a lot of other people share that same sentiment. You may know her from other romantic films from the 90s, like Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail. I think we have to watch Sleepless in Seattle at some point.
I just did.
Did you?
Yeah, with Annabelle.
How did you like it?
It was really good. I love Tom Hanks in it,
Yeah.
and that was my first Meg Ryan movie.
Really?
And then after watching this movie with Annabelle recently, she was like, "So you actually kind of like Meg Ryan movies?" I was like, "What are Meg Ryan movies?" Because I didn't really like. I thought it was like, "Oh, you like Hallmark movies?"
Right.
But Meg Ryan is the actress that she was just so classic at that time for this type of movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Like she was the rom-coms of the late 80s and early 90s, for sure.
And her hair was just on point for that time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I imagine she probably also started trends just as much as she followed them with her hairstyles.
Definitely.
And they changed over time as well with their movies.
Yeah.
So the last actor that I want to talk about is, actually, there's two actors that I have left to talk about. Carrie Fisher next we have to talk about as Marie, Meg Ryan, Sally's best friend throughout the film. Even she has some really great lines. Like there's this whole running joke about how she's secretly dating a married man, and how she knows that he is never going to leave his wife. And everybody is just so exhausted from telling her that over and over again, but she still holds on to this little grain of hope.
Yeah, and then she pulls all these like little tricky not pranks, but little tricks to see if he will notice that she wants him to leave his wife, and he just has no idea.
Yeah, just completely clueless.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So she's the classic best friend of the leading lady who provides quite a bit of comedic relief. I didn't fully recognize her right away.
Yeah, she does look quite a bit different from Princess Leia.
Of course,
from the 70s. Like, I mean, this is 10 years after those movies, right? So she had a rough life after Star Wars as well, so that probably aged her maybe a little bit more than you were expecting. Her hair is very different too,
and the hair and the makeup of that time kind of aged her up, or they did for the movie, but like at the end she looked much younger because I think she was finally like achieving.
Happy. Yeah. That's a great little
that might have been a purposeful thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great little thing you noticed there, for sure. Well, I don't even think we have to say who Carrie Fisher is at this point. She's obviously from Star Wars. Literally everybody knows who Carrie Fisher is. We don't need to go any further into that, but it's kind of cool that she's there. It's a little bit of a different role than maybe you're used to seeing Carrie Fisher in.
Yeah.
The last actor that I want to talk about, this is actually kind of random. I always do deep dives and see who's in the film and maybe where we may know them from. You probably don't know her, but the woman at the restaurant who says the most famous line in the entire movie, "I'll have what she's having," is actually Rob Reiner, the director's mom.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, really cool. It's one of the most famous lines in all of film.
Yeah, as that clip or as that scene happened, I was like, was this the first time that this was like made into a saying,
Yeah.
or was this copying someone else? Yeah, to find out that this was the first time, because everybody's heard that line.
There's a lot of not only like sayings, but ideas that come out of this film. This is like The Matrix a little bit in terms of having real cultural impact.
Yeah, like the tonal shift of movies going forward that are in that genre.
Yeah, and not only that, but like real life sayings, a lot of them come from this. Like the high maintenance, low maintenance was
Yeah.
popularized by When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
So yeah, really cool. I actually ended up after that diving into the Reiner's family, and they're all comedians. Every single one of them is comedians in directing, comedy, stand-up. Like Rob Reiner's dad was a stand-up comedian.
Oh, no way.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving then into Rob Reiner, obviously the director. He actually was in Wolf of Wall Street, believe it or not.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought he directed it. I just saw it quickly, but he was in it?
No, he was Max Belfort. He's Jordan Belfort's dad in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, really neat. He doesn't do a whole lot of. I think he does a little bit more acting now. He's kind of retired from directing, but he's an extremely important director of the 80s and 90s. He was the one who directed Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, and then Harry Met Sally. And after that, Misery and A Few Good Men. Like, think about that. That's 5 crazy good movies.
Almost cult classics, like some of them are.
Yeah, most of them are.
Yeah.
Like, Misery is
Spinal Tap as well.
Yeah, Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. I haven't seen Spinal Tap yet, but I really, really want to. That might be something we have to talk about a little bit on the side.
Yeah.
I'd like to watch that at some point.
I'm down. Just to bring something in more recent, has directed a bunch of TV shows, like episodes, like New Girl.
Honestly, one of my favorite directors for the 5 films in the order that we talked about.
Yeah.
Stand By Me has such an important impact on my life, and watching it as you get older, it's probably one of the greatest movies for as you get older, it changes with you.
Yeah,
and your
yeah.
experience of it and what you take out of that movie. But we don't need to talk about that now. We're definitely doing Stand By Me at some point in time. There's one more person that I want to talk to that's very relevant to the movie, and that's Nora Ephron, the writer. Extremely involved in the making of the movie, and also known for writing Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, so 2 other Meg Ryan films. She is one of the probably the most famous rom-com writers of all time.
Yeah, she did Julia and Julia and Bewitched. You've Got Mail. There's quite a few that she's got 17 credits, and like it looks like all of them were just amazing.
Yeah, like if you wanted to dive into a writer and kind of observe writing styles throughout films, I would honestly recommend Nora. She puts out some really great stuff.
Definitely.
Who is this movie for? Obviously, this is a rom-com. If you enjoy rom-coms, you're probably going to enjoy this one. I will make the argument, though, that this is a rom-com almost more for guys than it is girls. And for that reason, you can almost trick your girlfriend or wife or spouse, partner, whoever, into watching this on Valentine's Day and probably enjoying it more than she does secretly.
Yeah, or I was going to say this is a good thing for a female girlfriend, spouse, whatever, to trick a guy into enjoying the movie.
Yeah.
So that because there's a lot of guys will see themselves in Harry's character, especially in that first scene where they're driving from
I think it was Chicago to New York.
It was like an 18-hour drive though.
Yeah, that would be about
that,
I think.
Okay. Well, anyways, so they make a long drive to New York, and they're just bickering along the way and discussing things, and Harry thinks he's like this cool, intelligent,
like dark, mysterious
he thinks he's so
figure.
cool because he's so dark and mysterious, but he's just kind of like a lot of guys see themselves as that, and the growth from there is something that I think guys should probably see.
Yeah, and that's what's really great about this is it's not over the weekend we're gonna fall in love and get married kind of film. This is it takes 12 years for them to find their relationship together and figure out what their relationship is and where the important bits of it are really, and why it's so important to them. And again, you brought it up really well that their personalities change and adapt, and they become more mature. Like the Harry and Sally of 20, I want to say around 21 when they first meet, would never ever have dated. Not at all.
No.
Not being together.
They're just so different and couldn't see the other's perspective as valuable or interesting or lovable in any way.
Yeah. And that's something that makes the film really pop for me, is that it really takes its time to show you them throughout their lives. Honestly, that's mostly it for who should watch this. Honestly, I could probably pitch this to just about anyone. This is a timeless film. The effects, like, there's no crazy effects here. You don't have to worry about any of that. The dialogue is timeless. There's so many interesting ideas. It's all really sharp. Like think Quentin Tarantino kind of dialogue. It feels really good.
Yeah, you get drawn in, and it's very unique. Like the stories that they're telling each other, and just like the silliness at certain points, and it just all feels so realistic.
It's very genuine. It's a very genuine film.
And that actually comes from Rob Reiner and Nora's own lives. So it was very influenced by Rob Reiner's recent divorce and Nora's experience. That's kind of who we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's save that for effects and filming. We're going to dive real deep into that really quick, because I think that actually is why... another reason why this film is so great, because again, we have to give a lot of credit to Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan's portrayal.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about the direction of the film, both through writing and the director and them together, and how they work together to come up with this.
It was like 3 different levels of chemistry that just all worked so well.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of other people could pull this off on every single level that this film pulls off. Yeah. So when to watch this film? Obviously, this is a good Valentine's Day film.
Yeah. Jess and
I watch it pretty much every year for Valentine's Day.
Nice.
This is our V-Day movie to go to. I don't really know when else you'd want to watch it. Like, it's if you...
just like you could just throw it on a random like cold night or like
it's a good Sunday evening movie.
Yeah. Drink some wine with your significant other, and it's just like a great fun time overall.
The movie doesn't ask a lot from you, so you don't have to be too heavily involved. But after 10 times of viewing, I didn't pick up my phone once for another thought. Like I was fully invested in what was going on.
I was fully invested as well, and the only thing that I can see being an issue is like I almost want to call it the Seinfeld effect. I don't know if that's named yet. If so, TM that. But
I'm sure there's a Seinfeld effect out there. But describe what you mean.
So basically, newer viewers don't find Seinfeld as funny sometimes because they've seen all of those tropes get built upon in their media, the newer media.
Right.
So when you're watching When Harry Met Sally, but you're like, I've seen all of the elements of this in different modern movies. Yeah. But this is the OG.
This is the OG.
Yeah. So it's really cool just to see like how that the ideas at play first happened and how they just crushed it.
Yeah. And again, I think you brought this up earlier. I guess regardless, male, female, whatever, if this is something that you're passionate about, you really enjoy your rom-coms, you could probably get your spouse who's less interested in them to watch this and be more captivated by it than most other rom-coms. And that's almost how you have to pitch it to them too, is like, they're like, I'm not really into rom-coms. And you're like, no, like, let's watch this one. I'm not going to ask you to watch any other rom-coms, but there's something special about this.
Yeah, it's the epitome of like what it is.
Yeah, and it's timeless too. Like I said before, it never really shows its age in any way other than like the hairstyles.
Yeah,
maybe,
the hairstyles and fashion.
Yeah.
But some of that fashion is now like people are making like
it cycles.
Making it come back.
It just cycles through.
Yeah, but right now is pretty relevant for some of it.
Yeah,
so it's pretty cool.
For sure. And where to watch. So right now, it's a little bit limited in where you can watch it. You can only watch it through Crave Stars or through Amazon Stars. So a little bit limited there. I'm sure there are other means to watch it. I have a DVD, so
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, I can't recommend this enough. Even this is, you know what? I will say this is probably a great film to rent for an evening. It's probably $4 or something like that online, or less if you're American. And honestly, I can't recommend it enough. So I think here's a good spot to cut it off and say everything going forward is we're gonna talk spoilers. We're not gonna shy away from anything. If you're interested in this film, it's a great spot to cut it off and come join us later and do the deep dive into it. I really hope that if you've never watched this, that you do go and watch this because, again, I can't recommend this enough. Go enjoy this for your Valentine's Day, whatever. But
yeah, it's such a classic that's accessible to anybody. It's great.
And that's great. We've had a good track record the last couple months here, finding really good accessible movies of different genres.
Yeah. Even some that we had no idea going into it that it was going to be that good. It's just like, oh, we've heard that this is on our list, but it's like somewhat down there. We don't know anything about it, and then we just go watch it, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. This is the problem, though, is you and I are watching all these great movies, and they keep getting added to our top 10s, our top 20s, and everything. But yeah, eventually we'll draft that list up, maybe someday.
Yeah.
It just make me stressed out trying to decide what to cut.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk themes a little bit. The first theme here, and this is brought up very quickly in the movie, is the idea of whether men and women are able to be platonic friends or not.
Yeah.
And this one's kind of an interesting idea because the initial opening, Harry's idea or thought is that no, women and men can't be friends because men are always attracted to women, and regardless of how attractive they are, and that always ends up getting in the way because even if it's kind of agreed upon that they're not into each other, that it's still out there, and that creates a lot of friction and it causes issues, especially when maybe two different people go and meet other people and all of that. I think that as somebody who not long ago was in their early 20s, I could really agree with that idea and that concept.
Yeah, it's almost like a timeless-ish problem and like a human problem, but I feel like this is one of the times when it's kind of first mentioned. I can't say for sure that in film previously, but like this is like the classic like Barney in How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
His mindset. Toned down a little bit and more realistic. Toned down a lot and more realistic, but it's still pervasive today.
Yeah.
And yeah, the idea, like they go from like Harry having this very concrete concept of men and women can't be friends. They actually do become friends.
Yeah.
And like very deep good friends.
Yeah, and they're friends for 1 to 2 years, I would say, before anything more kind of happens.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines in this, and this kind of proves the point a little bit later, is when Sally is talking to her boyfriend at the time, Joe, and they're having this discussion about whether or not men and women can be friends.
Yeah.
And she asks to her boyfriend, Joe, do you have any female friends? So she goes, do you think men and women can be friends? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, do you have any female friends? And he thinks about it for a second. He's like, no.
Yeah. And he's like, I could get some if you want me to. Like, he doesn't have that, like, he didn't think about it, but it was just naturally no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's, and that concept kind of changes and it matures as Harry matures as well. And we get some great discussions about that a little bit back and forth as the movie goes on.
Yeah, and overall, I think it's obviously a complicated thing, but we do see that they can become friends, and if just a few situations were different, if they met other people, I think they could have remained friends. So, like, I think it is possible if we're talking about our own opinions on this subject.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but it's not either. I think I think it can happen.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting as well because even Sally later in the film kind of presents this idea of her friend Marie, and she's trying to hook Marie up with Harry, and the reason the main reason for that, she says, is because I don't want to move apart from you or Harry because you two are so important in my life.
Yeah.
But I know that if you go and find somebody else and he goes and finds somebody else, you two are both going to grow apart from me.
Yeah.
And so having me being the central connection in this, I'll always be a part of your lives.
Yeah, yeah. And both of them experience that because Harry with his friend, he tries to set Harry tries to set his friend up with Sally. Yeah. And they then, of course, this is like a classic trope now. I don't know if it was new to this, but that they went on a double date and they switched. The two that were supposed to be dating the other switched to the other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So Harry's friend, I think his name was Jess. Yeah. So he's trying to hook Jess up with Sally. Sally's trying to hook Harry up with Marie, and there's no chemistry between that kind of group. And then Jess says something, Marie says something. Jess is like, "Oh my God, I was the one who wrote what you just said."
Yeah.
And suddenly there's this connection, this very deep connection. And the whole scene that plays out where they kind of have this back and forth later about, like, I don't know if I'm feeling Harry. I don't know if I'm feeling Sally. Are you okay if I maybe go and see the other person, because you don't seem like you have a whole lot of chemistry. And then Jess is like, I'm not really feeling tonight. I think I'm gonna head out.
Yeah.
And Marie's like, all right, I'm coming with you. And they just like dip.
Yeah, that was
so
perfect.
Fast.
Yeah. And so you see in that dinner scene that Harry and Sally, they see that it's about to happen. They see that those two just connected. And this is kind of another theme, is there's the concept of like falling in love at first sight versus developing over time through friendship and then love
and then becoming
eventually.
Something else. And I think that's a really great idea, and I think that's really important. And I think that's something that a lot of people, and especially younger people, need to hear and see as well, because that's definitely true. Like that can absolutely happen.
Yeah. Like there's been like seeing it in a realistic way, because you do see in so many movies like a love at first sight thing, but and you know what, I think I could almost argue that it was there for this, but in like a perverse way. like I think Harry probably fell in love with her right away, but then got like, each of them was just so in their head about what they expected from life.
Yes, and what
that
they
denied
from their
it.
Partner as well.
Yeah. That like there was a connection there. They had the connection, but it had to grow very slowly, and then they had to mature and everything. So I think they still had a version of love at first sight, but then you also see the love at first sight with their friends.
Yeah, and you know what? We haven't talked about this yet, and I'm actually going to dive a little bit more into it in effects and filming about the kind of the information behind it. But throughout the film, as we cut to different times, we get these interviews with these older couples, and how they met and developed their relationship and how they got to where they are now.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are kind of those love at first sight stories, but not all of them are.
Yeah,
and there's some really fun, interesting, funny stories that come out of those. Like the man who divorced his wife, dated like 2 or 3 other women, and his wife is kind of naming them off. Well, first you were with her, and then you married her,
and then he's getting them confused, and like because they're like 80,
and then they've eventually later on in life reconnected and rekindled that relationship.
Yeah, and like having those little clips in there, it did add to the movie in that like it just showed that this isn't a classic romance. Like these are the unconventional, like deep loves that can happen outside of like this Hollywood version of what a rom-com is going to show you.
Yeah, and it's just really great breaks between the different scenes and the different the different times as we're moving through time. It works really well in the film.
I don't know if we're talking about this now, but the jumps in time were nice. I liked them in this movie.
They were very well done, and they again, that's what we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Like, it's not like an over a weekend fall in love kind of thing. It takes 12 years for this relationship to develop,
With large space in between. Yeah,
Yeah, with a large space in
5
between.
years each time.
Yeah, and we catch up a little bit with each character and learn about what they've got going on in their lives and how they've changed their
Yeah.
ideas, how their ideas have changed, and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's really well done. It feels different from the typical rom-com, and I think there's been a few that have done that since. My rom-com knowledge is not super
Yeah,
strong,
yeah.
so I can't really compare a whole lot of movies to it, but
It's an underappreciated genre, but also just the right amount of appreciation
yeah, that's
from me.
probably fair.
Yeah.
I don't even think you could call Hallmark movies rom-coms. They're just full
No,
of
those are-
romance, like
yeah, yeah.
gushy
Well,
romance.
yeah,
There's
it
probably
depends
some
on what
comedy in them,
it
but-
depends on what you define as comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some real comedy in this,
Yes.
but it's just like textbook comedy or something like that. Like,
Yeah. Do you have any more themes that you want to get into before we get into effects and filming? Because we're kind of dancing around effects and filming a little bit.
yeah, we are. There's not a lot to this. They do the themes well that we've already spoken of, I think.
And like you said earlier, it really is a character study.
Yeah.
And how they mature throughout their lives, how their relationship develops throughout their lives, and it's not really heavy into the themes like some of the other films
Yeah.
that we've watched.
And what I absolutely love about it is just the dialogue. Like,
Yes.
it's very dialogue based.
And it all feels so natural.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Like some of the stories that they are like telling each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's that thing where you can't replicate real life. Sometimes, like, real life is more absurd than
Yeah.
you can make up.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a bunch of those stories are real from the writer and director's lives.
Yeah.
And the actors. Like, again, that chemistry brings out those stories that sound so real
Yeah.
because they're kind of absurd.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's dive into effects and filming so that we can really talk about all of this stuff. So let's start with the writing because that's something we've been touching on.
Yeah.
How this film was developed, we got to talk about Rob Reiner a little bit here and his personal life and how much that affected it. He divorced previously from his wife, and I think this is actually just before The Princess Bride and Stand By Me, those films, because when Harry Met Sally actually took a few years to develop, and it was kind of over that time of Rob Reiner's greatest films, basically. And so he actually had a sit-down meeting between himself, Andy Scheinman, the producer, and Nora Ephron, and because the three of them wanted to develop a film together. The first time they had this discussion, they didn't really get anywhere. The second time they sat down, and Rob and Andy actually had a really deep conversation between each other about what it's like to be a single man and how complicated and confusing it can be, especially after a divorce or something like that, and trying to dive back into the dating life and not knowing what to expect and having all these like weird and awkward interactions with other people.
Yeah.
And so this actually led Rob to having the idea about doing a film about two people who become friends and don't have sex because they know it's going to ruin their relationship eventually, but then they do it anyway.
Yeah,
and kind of the
yeah.
effects that happen from that. And then Nora obviously also very interested in this idea as well. So she starts writing all these ideas. She bases all of the characters off of real life people. So Harry, very much based on Rob Reiner. And a lot of it was Reiner's depression and his pessimistic outlook on life, just because of all the hardships in his own personal life that he was dealing with at that time, while also being able to be really funny and having that great comedic timing. On the flip side, Sally is actually based a lot on Nora and her friends as well. She kind of congregated all of them together. The reason why Billy Crystal actually became involved is because he was best friends with Reiner, especially throughout this hard time in Reiner's life. So he had that kind of special view into exactly the character that they were trying to build.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. He was almost doing research or doing study of the character unknowingly over those years, right? And Reiner actually was trying to find somebody else at the time to be that, but just Billy Crystal just knew him so well, and that comedic timing And a lot of those comedic moments were actually inserted by Billy Crystal. He came up with so many of these lines, including the most famous line, "I'll have what she's having."
Yeah,
came
no
out
way.
from him.
Nice.
And even ideas about Harry and Sally's relationship, or how men interact with other men, women interact with other women. A lot of those came from Billy Crystal as well, and Rob Reiner. Billy Crystal and Rob Reiner used to call each other every single night and watch movies together while they talked over the phone.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So like to help him get through it, kind of, or like
yeah, exactly.
just to be good friends, and then that became part of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a really great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever done that with anyone before. I've done that with people, and it's really
I have,
fun.
yeah, like, cause you're just watching a movie together, very similar to sitting on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you couldn't like hang out or whatever.
Yeah, there were times in high school even where there was girls that I was dating at the time, and we just pick a TV show and watch it together separate, and you'd be texting each other like little jokes as you're going. It's a really fun thing.
Yeah.
If you're maybe new to a relationship, it's kind of a cool idea to try that. If you guys maybe can't get together for whatever reason, watch a movie together apart. It's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, and overall, like, beginnings of relationships often do start with like sharing whatever you're into at the time. So like, and that kind of builds towards like part of what you become. Mm-hmm. Like Annabelle and I watched Game of Thrones. She was super into it. I just decided not to watch it because it was too popular for me at the time.
Yeah, I've been there.
And then she was like, "You have to watch it." So we started watching it together, and that was like a basis of like an activity for us. So that's so relatable. And if we had to like watch it separately, that would have been a great way to do it.
Yeah. So all of that kind of coming together, that's what makes this film so genuine, is where this comes from. This comes from a very special place in all of the director, the producer, the writers, all of their lives. And Billy Crystal coming in and adding his own kind of humor and his own observations into the character that they're trying to build as well.
And I feel like with Nora and Sally and her friends, like that was so essential to the movie.
Oh yeah.
That if it wasn't all three of them, or like if all three of them hadn't gotten together and had that chemistry for the writing and for the understanding of what Rob was going through or whatever, then like that part of the movie would have been missing completely. So her being there helped so much. Yeah,
and I wonder how many other rom-coms have both male and female perspectives coming into the writing room and having equal say like that. Because Rob and Nora were definitely equals in the creation of this, and the ideas that they both tossed around, the observations that they had of each other.
Yeah.
Everything with that is so genuine, and it really shows. And that's why this film still holds up to this day, is because they're not trying for tropes of the 80s. It's just person to person, how the interactions, the relationships kind of work.
Yeah, and Nora and Rob really did get close from what I've read, in that just discussion of life and everything throughout this, and so that meshing of the two, like, they really became friends.
Yeah.
So having that realism in their everyday life and then being able to portray it like so eloquently. Yeah. It was just, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we kind of touched upon this as well, the old couples and their stories. Those were actually actors. However, those stories were based on real stories. Nora actually did interviews with the production team and different people in and out of their casting location. And that's where she came up with a lot of these stories. And then maybe added a little spice here and there and got some actors to film some of those.
Yeah, because the actors did a great job, and she did a great job directing and whatever within that. Because each of those scenes were like, they reached kind of like heartwarming and different, and gave that perspective of a unperfect love, or like the unperfect beginnings of love or whatever. Yeah. Imperfect, I guess I should say.
I can't even say it now. Last effects in filming, I mean, the film, in my opinion, there's not a lot of special effects, right? So it's not like it's trying to hold up to today's times, which again makes it easier viewing in 2022.
The far future.
Yeah, the far, far future. Locations, obviously New York being shot throughout.
Amazing apartments. Like it's like the classic thing where like how do these people have this amazing out of apartment? But it's a different time, and they were like fairly well off, each of them.
Yeah,
like if you're
Harry's
looking
a
into
lawyer.
yeah. But like amazing apartments. Like when they Harry and Sally were like rolling out that carpet that it was just like a small scene, but Annabelle and I were like, holy shit, that's a huge ass carpet. Could you imagine having an apartment big enough for that carpet? No. That's like a dream for anybody, especially in New York these days.
Yeah, and the windows overviewing like all of the city and everything. Absolutely beautiful. Kat's Delicatessen, the restaurant where the famous fake orgasm scene happens, where I'll have what she's having line. That is actually a real restaurant in New York. It's been open since 1888.
Damn.
So, yeah, well over 100 years old at this point. And you can still go get the very authentic New York meat. Maybe compare that against Montreal smoked meat.
Yeah. Get the sauce on the side, though.
Yeah, get the sauce on the side. The table where Harry and Sally met, there's a sign over that says, like, this is where Harry and Sally sat.
Oh, that's so cool.
She's having kind of thing.
Nice.
So. And it's kind of neat as well, a few years ago, there was a comedy group that had, like, a flash mob there where everybody acted out the scene. And so there was two kind of lookalikes with Harry and Sally having that discussion back and forth. And then what happened is all the women started joining in when they realized what she was doing. So the whole room, it's really funny video on YouTube. You gotta check it out at some point.
I'm definitely going to after this. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And there was definitely some confused faces in the crowd.
Yeah.
That's all I've got for effects and filming. I don't know if there's anything that you want to talk about there.
Like, I always catch different props or like cars. So her car in the beginning as they were driving, it's a 76 Toyota Corona wagon.
Really?
So, yeah. So I just liked that. Like, it was a cool classic old car and
very boxy.
Yeah. Like, it was, and it wasn't an 80s car yet. It was actually a little bit rounded, like right between the 70s and 80s where it became boxy. So it was just like a nice, and like, I don't know how popular Toyotas really were at that time, but those like 70s ones I love.
Yeah, probably kind of growing in the 70s. Not nowhere near
what they are now.
Yeah, what they are now.
Are we doing the soundtrack next?
Yeah, let's do score.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
I think you and I have come to appreciate the score of films a lot more, especially as we've kind of talked about this now, and how important they are to not only the film at the time, but how well it holds up to future viewings and just watching it much later than when the original film came out. When Harry Met Sally uses a very interesting type of music. It uses a lot of classical piano kind of music.
And it's like jazz.
Yeah, very jazzy.
Jazz and blues kind of oriented.
The whole soundtrack, it wasn't written like a lot of these are original, very famous classical or jazz pieces. However, there was a very famous singer and pianist, Harry Connick Jr., and Bobby Colomby, who was the drummer for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I've never heard of that rock group before. It's a jazz rock group. It's kind of interesting. But they actually recorded separately all of these classical pieces and sang. Rob Reiner was kind of looking for the exact voice that Harry Connick Jr. was bringing. And it really works for this. It's writing specifically for the film itself. And that's really important to adding to the mood, especially when, as a director, you have the direction of where you want to take the score.
Yeah, and Connick won his first Grammy for his performance on the soundtrack as well. So, yeah, he fit the mood very appropriately. It is so 80s.
Yeah.
So there was two versions of that. I wrote it down as the Potato song.
Yeah.
But it's called Let's Call the Whole Thing Off. And it was originally by Ella F. and Louis Armstrong. So that that classic old voice that you hear in the first iteration of it is Louis Armstrong.
Nice.
And yeah, it was just like that. As soon as that song came on and that like his voice, it just brings you like right back to the earliest memories of childhood for me in like the 90s watching older movies.
You know what this reminds me of now that you talk about that? It kind of reminds me of like Christmas Vacation and the score from that.
Yeah, yeah. And even a little bit of Toy Story. Like You Got a Friend in Me. That's I don't know. I forget who sung. It wasn't actually
That's another famous person. Randy Newman.
Randy Newman. So yeah, I actually thought this was Randy Newman, but it was Louis Armstrong, because I just get those two voices mixed up as that 80s guy singing.
Well, and that's actually a little bit the reason why Harry Connick Jr. was selected, is because his voice was kind of that Frank Sinatra kind of voice. That's exactly what he was looking for that.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, because, so first they played the Louis Armstrong version, and then they played at the end the Connick
Jr.,
Connick Jr. song, or version, and that brought a little bit of modernity to it, but, just classic 80s still.
Yeah,
and, like,
but
classic
very much
old
enjoyable.
feel.
Though.
Yeah.
Like these songs didn't age out. I would say, like, it fits the movie very well. I'm a little bit of a sucker for jazz. Like if there's some good jazz beats, like I would take that over most other genres of current music now. I don't seek jazz out necessarily, but I think it adds a nice spice to a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
And in this film, it really works.
Yeah. The jazz incorporation makes a lot of sense for the style of the movie, the style of their interactions. It is very off the cuff. They don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They're trying to figure this out as they go, which is exactly what jazz is improvisation. Yeah. So like when you see Harry and Sally interacting as friends, you could tell like they're getting closer than they want to, but then they back off a little bit, then they get a little closer, and like you see that like improvisation where they're like, are we really just friends at certain moments?
Yeah.
And like they're like, no, of course we're just friends. That's all it's ever going to be. And then like, so that playfulness, it just fits the movie.
It's almost like it's genuine, right? Like it's figuring stuff out as you go, and it really works in this. Yeah, it's
natural. It's realistic, and that's the overall like idea that they're trying to bring to this romance side of the rom-com, and how they changed everything kind of in that.
Yeah. Really quick, let's just look back at the times. I don't really have a whole lot here to discuss. I did want to just say, though, that it came out during the same summer as Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, as the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton.
Oh, awesome.
And still managed to gross $92 million in 1989. So
that's very fair because it's so different than the other two.
Yeah.
Like, if you were going to go watch, like, 2 movies in one night, I forget what those are called, like a double feature, and you wanted to satisfy both parties if you were going as a couple or something like that, this would be great to go watch with those. Yeah,
I agree. This would be fun with that. Like a nice drive-in kind of movie.
Yeah, like, I feel like maybe I would want to watch When Harry Met Sally and then Indiana Jones. I don't know. Or the other way around so that you wind down a little bit as you drive home. But I would be so pumped from Indiana Jones. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I think you might be right. You might have to do When Harry Met Sally first. Although, I don't know. It'd be cool. Maybe we got to try that sometime. Do a double feature with those two and see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
You try one way, I'll try the other way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all I wanted to say, is that it was up against some really big movies and still managed to do well. What you made me think of is actually the marketing strategy behind this. Billy Crystal didn't think this was going to be a hit either because of what they were competing against.
Yeah.
And the way that they actually released it is they released it only to a small number of theaters, and they wanted to get the word of mouth out and get people excited and interested for this. And
I wrote that down, and like I really want to bring that up.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you remembered just now.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So yeah, they didn't do like a huge marketing sweep or anything because they were up against these giants. So that word of mouth, just that it's so different or whatever compared to what had been previously in that genre.
Yeah, really interesting. It's always interesting to hear different strategies of how to make your movie relevant and interesting to people. And
Yeah, like we're seeing a lot of that in different movies that we're looking at, just the different ways that they're marketing them. Like we're kind of learning the business a little bit.
Yeah, we are learning the business a little bit, and that's really interesting. That's something that definitely as somebody who's a student of movies, something that I've been a little deficient on in understanding, and I've definitely really grown to appreciate that side of the biz.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, let's talk legacy now. I'm really excited to talk about this a little bit. First, we got to start. This movie has gone on to be one of the greatest rom-coms, one of the greatest comedies of all time. If you look at any rom-com list, I almost can guarantee you it's going to be in the top 10 of most people.
And the rest of the 10 will be influenced by it, probably.
Yes. Yeah, you're probably not going to find many earlier than this. There's a couple, and maybe a couple of 50s movies or early 60s movies that maybe
are just classics in their own right.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is probably the one that's going to inspire the most on the list of best rom-coms, while also being on there. It's also in the top 100 comedies of all time by AFI. It's 23rd on that list.
Damn.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
In terms of direct inspirations that came out of this, was definitely directly influenced by When Harry Met Sally. Like you said before, most rom-coms have taken different pieces of this and different elements of this and have tried different spins on it. Really, in 2022, we're just watching different variants of When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah. Like, for an example, Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart, 2005. Just Friends. Like,
yeah,
they're trying to be just friends, and then there was another one with Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, I believe.
No, I think it was somebody else. Mind-blowing.
Then there's another one with no, I'm thinking of Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis.
Yes,
and Ashton Kutcher and
is that Friends with Benefits?
Yeah, Friends with Benefits. So like, there's very similar things that we've all seen these variants of. But to see the original is
no
very
strings
cool.
attached is the Ashton Kutcher one.
Yeah. So, and those three movies are classics for our generation. Not necessarily classics, but they're ones
most people watch most of those.
Yeah, exactly. So, again,
there's also a lot there. Like Love, which is an earlier Ashton Kutcher movie, and Amanda
Bynes?
Peet. Sorry.
Oh, Pete's.
Amanda Peet. Yes. Yeah, so a lot of those films are directly influenced by this. So if you're interested in those, like, it's kind of going backwards, but it's like The Matrix perfecting all of these different genres into one, the original Matrix movie. It's like going back to seeing The Matrix of rom-coms, basically. Yeah. Which is a weird comparison, but I'm rolling with it.
Yeah.
Still to this day, there's articles being written about this film. Like, I did some news reading about this. There was an article written a couple days ago on the New York Post discussing the film and the greatest rom-coms of all time. And this one was one of the top, like, 3. And they also discussed an alternate ending where both Harry and Sally decide to part ways.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they dive into that a little bit, because that was actually the original ending, and actually both Nora and Rob have said that that's really where they believed these characters were heading, was to part ways.
But they couldn't do it. They couldn't pull the trigger.
They couldn't pull the trigger because Rob, during the making of this movie, fell in love and got engaged to his wife, and just couldn't do it after that. He finally became the Harry by the end of the film. He figured himself out, and he figured out what is love. Maybe don't hurt him.
There's a certain aspect of this concept that doesn't hold up, only in the fact that we now in 2022 are starting to delve deeper into what men and women are, and gender roles and things like that. Like, there's certain aspects of that are being challenged today that haven't been challenged in the last 40 years since this movie came out.
Yeah, I think at the heart of things, it's still gonna cut deep for a lot of people and feel genuine, and you're gonna relate to Harry, Sally, maybe their friends, other people.
Here's my comparison.
Yeah.
Look at all of the high school teen movies.
Okay.
Like, let's say pre
I'd really rather not, but okay.
Pre 2010 or whatever. So what I'm looking at specifically are things like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, you're talking way or older.
No, from there all the way up to things like, this is my example, is 21 Jump Street.
Okay.
Where he goes back to school and suddenly there's not these jocks and the nerds. It's a
Right.
bunch of like kids who are very developed and like they're well-rounded and like they have multiple interests that don't define anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we might lose some viewers, not viewers, but I mean like lose some of that black and white from this movie, because there is the male versus female dichotomy at play here.
Yeah.
But
a bit, yeah.
now I would say like guys are more like they're more able to see the other side, and friendships are crossing a little bit more of boundaries in a healthy way. Everyone's kind of becoming more healthy because this is exploring what could be viewed as an unhealthy view of the world.
Hey Jason, do you have any really good female friends
Yeah, I do.
that you talk to regularly?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, like within our friend group, we have a fair amount of
We're
women.
split even like 50-50. We're like a friends kind of group
Vibe.
a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
like dynamic.
Yeah, it's there is a different form of that friendship
But you
where
know-
it's not like me and you, or me and Kelvin, or you and Kelvin.
Yeah.
Like the type of friendship is different, and this, like When Harry Met Sally, doesn't explore the differences between those, but it's not flat out I'm not friends with any like I have great friends of the opposite gender or sex, whatever.
Yeah.
And like I value them and their perspective and their opinion and everything.
Yeah.
It's just very different of a friendship. But what I think is missing from this argument that this movie is making, and that classic view is making, is best friends. If you have a like absolute best friends, I think absolute best friends, like very, very close best friends, it's very difficult to have that with the opposite sex.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna propose to you for the next question. Like, I guess I won't name any names here, but I wouldn't say like you would go and hang out with ex female friend and just go and hang out with her kind of thing without Annabelle or somebody else kind of around. It's just kind of weird. I don't know. Like
I can definitely with and Annabelle can with her male friends. Like there.
It just doesn't happen really.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not the same as if I was going to hang out with you or Kelvin or whoever else. Like,
but if we were single way back when, I probably would have a little bit more. This is kind of the weird thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what I'm trying to get to. So maybe it's not so outdated, honestly.
No, it's not. The concept is outdated in the fact that it's not looking deeper. If you have it on face value, you can say yes to an 80% degree. Or like 80%, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is true. But once you look into it more, which I think the newer generations and like the new version of like where we're kind of heading in society is to look at the smaller differences a little bit more. We're allowed to. We have the time to and the knowledge to look deeper at, okay, so like this isn't a 50-50 split yes or no anymore.
Right.
There's multiple ways and there's multiple expressions of what this means. So I'd say we're going in a good direction, and this movie is still very relevant because it brings up the base fact. Like the base discussion is there and it's still valuable to listen to, but we've kind of we're getting deeper into it now these days.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily have to do that deep dive in it if you want. It's not going to take away from your enjoyment if you just want to watch a fun rom-com.
No, yeah. Don't devolve to that point, which I just did. I only did it for the discussion, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was a good discussion. I thought we had some great ideas there, but... All right, let's dive back into Legacy really quick here.
Right.
Again, some of the concepts in here have now become kind of timeless concepts, like the high maintenance versus low maintenance, both male and female, because you and I talked earlier about how Harry is also kind of a high maintenance but thinks he's low maintenance kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he would definitely say he was low maintenance.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, like his own perceptions, like internalizing that or externalizing it or whatever to a certain degree where maybe it was like he was putting it on other people, but he didn't really look at himself yet because he was only like 21.
Yeah. Transitional partner.
Yeah.
That's another one that
Yes.
gets brought up. And
Yes.
that's so, like, I've definitely had those discussions with people before.
Yeah. It's like the classic thing, like people are kind of looking out for when you might get into a relationship with someone who just got broken up with or just broke up with someone. You're like, am I just the like the for now thing?
Yeah. Am I literally just a transitional person
to
the next person, basically? So yeah,
you have to be your own transitional person.
Yeah, and again, this is one that it maybe tells a little bit, but it shows a lot more than it tells, and that's what again makes it so genuine. We see a lot more of that. Yeah,
like almost anyone who's like younger and goes into this movie, you'll relate to the initial, like the beginnings of it.
Yes,
because or anybody can remember that time in their life where they were like, things were this way, and like I believed this, and I thought this about the opposite sex.
Or you're going through some heartbreak, and you're upset, and you're angry with the world, and you're angry, and you can't, like, you don't want to be in a relationship because you're just mad about the whole concept of it.
Yeah, and then they also bring up the idea of missing the idea of someone.
Yeah, that's a great point as well.
Yeah, and that is something I think almost everyone will experience.
Yes.
In like multiple ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the beginning, Harry was very like wary of women and getting married, and so he stayed a certain way so that he could just say goodbye in the morning. But then at a certain point, he's like, "No, what? I'm tired of this," and he just got married. And like that idea is pretty common in the way men are portrayed, or like maybe men's experience, some men's experience, whatever, and women's experience, where like they're like some women are and men are like so set on just getting married so that it could be done with.
Yeah.
And then that's where this idea that they discuss of like divorce and how you might as well sign a prenup first, and they discuss this quite a bit in the movie.
And that's essentially what the movie is about. It's about how a relationship is supposed to be versus how it's perceived to supposed to be.
And how it actually is, and how complex there aren't one side or the other to any of these.
Yeah, and I think you're almost dancing around it there, that the relationships in this are extremely complex, and it's not like most rom-coms or like most romantic films. And the issues, the troubles that they have feel a lot more genuine than a lot of those films. Like, you really don't know if Harry and Sally are going to end up together throughout the film. And even when they do kind of hook up, you don't know where that's going to even lead to at this point in time.
Yeah. Again, there's another point to make, is that when both Harry and Sally have exited their previous relationships, they react so differently.
Yes.
And that can be switched to either gender, really. Yeah. Where Harry was like devastated for quite a while.
Yeah,
and just
he
like
externalized
consistently.
it.
Yeah. And of course he still slept with women because he's like, well, what else am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And then Sally did not sleep with anyone
and internalized it.
And she internalized it, and then but she also was like, "No, what? I'm fine." For like months, she was like, "Oh, I'm fine. Like I'm completely
probably a year.
Completely over this guy." And then the guy who said that he didn't want to marry her went and got married.
Yeah, he got engaged like a year after they broke up.
And it was like a sudden realization for her that she wasn't fully over him completely, even though she'd been acting like and feeling like she was for a year. And then she suddenly broke down because she realized that he didn't not want to get married. He just didn't want to marry her.
Yeah.
So like that carrying on in different ways after a drastic breakup.
Yeah, and the relationship between Harry and Sally, again, this is why it's so great that it goes over that 12-year span. I think just about anyone can relate to certain ideas and concepts and parts of not only the relationship between Harry and Sally, but their relationships with other third parties. Like, I could probably connect with 2 or 3 different ideas throughout this, and I think just about anybody can.
Yeah. Like, there's so many small scenes and big ones that are just so relatable. Like when Harry saw Sally for the first time after their drive was in an airport. She was making out with her new guy.
Yeah, and this is 5 years later.
Yeah, 5 years later. They're about 26 now or whatever.
Yep.
And Harry just pretends that he doesn't remember Sally.
Yeah.
And like, who hasn't experienced that, where you see someone after 5 years after high school or after college or whatever, and you're like I remember you. I don't remember. I don't know if you'll remember me.
Yeah.
Like, just like, that was just like such a life moment.
Yeah.
Like a real life moment that they navigated and had to continue on from.
Yeah, I think I really connect with that as well. I honestly think I a little bit have maybe that imposter syndrome kind of thing. And so I often feel like people aren't going to remember me or even remember my name. And so that's definitely something like
or
where
they're
I
not,
really felt that.
Yeah, or like they're like, oh, why would you like come say hey? But like most of the time, both people are thinking that, where it's like, are they going to say hey? I don't want to say hey. I wasn't expecting to see anybody today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here doing my own shit. I didn't want to be like reconnecting with someone after 5 years.
Yeah, that's something that like even now I really struggle with it. And I wish I could get more out of that comfort zone a little bit of just pretending that I don't know them.
Yeah.
Because then again,
it's
like
so
you said,
human.
it's the flip side as well. Because then you're like, oh, they don't know me, obviously, so I should just pretend I don't know them either.
Yeah, but both are doing it.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to know that other people do that too.
Yeah. And it's been happening since the 80s. So you youngins, it's just a thing.
Yo, whippersnappers.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good summary of Legacy. I think we could talk about this a little bit further, but I think I'm ready to move on a little bit and talk about a couple other things before we wrap this up. Sequels, prequels, reboots, very quickly. There hasn't been any sequels, prequels, reboots. Don't ever touch this cinematically. It's perfect. You'll never do it better. You can recreate it with definitely maybe Friends with Benefits, all those other things. They're never going to be as good as this.
Yeah, all of them were they were like offshoots of it, but they weren't direct sequels, which I don't think you could do.
No,
you
and
couldn't do it with
it.
like justice to it.
No, you really couldn't. You would definitely water down the importance of When Harry Met Sally.
Like, you can throw in a little bit more wackiness and awkwardness, because that orgasm in the like the fake orgasm scene, I had trouble watching it. I suck
really?
I suck with watching cringe humor. And that was just premium cringe right there, like right from the tap. It was tough to watch, and like I knew the scene because I had,
everybody knows the scene.
Yeah, but I couldn't watch it still, even though I've like seen it.
Right.
Because I was already so invested. But she did that scene so amazingly.
So no prequels, sequels, or reboots. However, in 2004, this was adapted for play with Luke Perry and Allison Hannigan, which honestly, I could see this as being a really great play to go and watch.
Yeah.
I would really enjoy this, I think. I'm actually somebody who really appreciates plays and going seeing live action kind of stuff. My grandparents kind of raised me like that, so Jess and I have gone to a few. There was one, I think it was just called One, and it was about a guy and a girl at a pub and their relationship, and he was the guitarist at the pub, and I really loved that, and I think that there's, even with that one, you could maybe make connections to that in this, and I think I'd really enjoy that. I would pay money probably to go see a screen or a live adaptation of this.
Yeah, I would too, probably. I enjoy reading screenplays. I haven't necessarily seen many.
I'm a really big fan of that kind of art form. I you know what?
We should go as part of the podcast.
Yeah, I'd be down
to something.
Yeah, I've
cool.
I've got a list of some of the greats that I've seen and some of the greats that I want to see. The Book of Mormon is top of my list of plays that I want to see. It was written by the guys who wrote South Park, and it's the It did the best financially out of any play ever.
Wow.
Better than Hamilton, I think.
Damn.
So, also, side note, I did watch Hamilton recently. It was just okay.
Huh. All right.
Not
there
my
you go.
jam. Not my
Yeah.
jam. But yeah, no, when we can finally go and see plays, we'll go see the Book of Mormon. All four of us will go check it out because I really want to see it at some point. It's top of my list of ones that I
Yeah,
want
it sounds
to watch.
fun.
So let's do it for sure.
All
It's
right.
good at night out in Toronto kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Our personal reviews and the partner factor. I think at this point in time, if you don't know where we both stand on this, I don't know what you've been listening to. I love this movie. Jess loves this movie. I'm not even going to separate our reviews because they're one and the same. This is one of our go-to couples movies. We watch it the most on Valentine's Day. We watched it the night that I proposed, so there's a fun fact for you too.
Beautiful.
There's so many great comedic moments to this. The relationships never feel forced or out of place. You can see yourself in different points in their relationship, their life. And there's such a personal touch to this that not a lot of other films necessarily have that personal touch. That's really my review. I love this. Everybody should watch this. It's so good. It's so good. And I am not a big fan of rom-coms. I like dumb comedy, and this is just fantastic. Has to be in my top 20. So
Damn.
yeah.
So I think Annabelle and I are on a different perspective, kind of.
And I was really looking forward to hearing a different perspective of this.
Yeah. Like I through dissecting the movie and everything, I very much appreciate it. I enjoyed everything thoroughly. I was looking at Googling what they were wearing and stuff, just because like the fashion was so crazy that like some of those pieces could be brought back and work so well today.
Nice.
But Annabelle, she thought it was good for its time, and like she appreciated it through like looking through that this is an old rom-com lens.
Right.
But meh.
Really? I'm actually surprised.
And so that's actually like I texted her. I was like, "Hey, what's your review?"
Yeah.
And then I was like, "So were the times you were crying in it just meh too?" And she's like, "I didn't cry." I was like, "I'm pretty sure you did."
Wow.
So where that leaves us off, I don't know. I think she isn't sold on the concept of rewatching old movies.
Yeah.
She's gonna hate listening to this, by the way. But I think she liked it a lot still. And know what, I do too. Like I'm not at your level, but
and I think
overall,
that's a good perspective, and I was really looking forward to hearing you and hopefully balancing me out a little bit, because this is such a high for me. That I really was hoping that you came somewhere a little bit lower but still enjoyed it.
Yeah, like overall I think movies have such an impact on like our lives in a certain way, where like we attribute certain feelings to certain movies because of our experiences and whatnot. So overall, it's like this is one that I could see anybody could like just watch that with your partner, and then you like feel those emotions with them and really enjoy each other in that moment of watching this movie. And I think it was there, but we've had other ones that meant other things for us. So this one was like, it was great technically.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is it's different movies are going to have different importance and relevance to different people. Yeah. And for this one, it's very relevant and very important to my life.
If somebody asked me what's one of the best rom-coms that I should watch, I would definitely recommend this. Yeah. Like it has everything that you want from this genre, and it was the originator of so many
concepts and ideas.
Yeah, it was like a little black hole that brought in everything at the right time. Yeah. And just is what it is. Yeah. In such a real way. I love it.
Yeah, it's a really great film. What I really like to hear sometime, if you guys ever do rewatch this in the future, like let us know as a listener as well, what your thoughts are on the second viewing, because I think that could maybe even add to your enjoyment a little bit in knowing the trajectory of where things are going and appreciating the journey a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think it's like a timing thing too, like watching it currently in the time of our lives, like we're at the right time I think to watch it, but just for us it's very we're so busy that we couldn't she couldn't get fully involved, and I was like watching it for dissection.
Yeah.
So if I had watched this like a few years ago with her and we just like had that full enjoyment of just watching it in the purest form,
Yep.
I think it would be a little bit different. But overall, still like it's like still like 5 stars basically. Like
it's always funny how movies can have that effect on you where in different settings they impact you in different ways. The biggest example of this for me is Hot Rod. Funny enough, like the most ridiculous, like stupid Andy Samberg movie ever.
Yeah.
The first time I watched it, I was like, I don't get this. I hate this. This is dumb. Like this humor's not for me. I watched it with one of my best friends like a few weeks after that I watched it the first time, and loved it. I came to really appreciate the humor and the ideas and just some of the comedic moments and when they hit the punchline of certain jokes and stuff like that. So
that was exactly like Hot Tub Time Machine when it came out, because Kelvin and his girlfriend of the time watched it together. And she wasn't super into it, so he was like, yeah, it was an okay movie.
Yeah.
So, like, his enjoyment wasn't complete. And then me and him watched it together, and it became, like, a running, like theme of things to reference.
Yeah,
and
I
then,
remember
like,
that time.
yeah.
We still reference it in some of the music as well, like Home Sweet Home.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Exactly, yeah. So, the setting of you watching this, whatever you're gonna watch, and that's kind of why we say you should watch this movie during this or that, like that the setting really makes a difference.
It does, it really does, and your mindset going into it. That's such a good point, and I'm gonna rip on Kelvin here because you did as well. One time, same girlfriend and him watched Dinner for Schmucks, and they loved it. They told me how great it was.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time and I watched it, and we hated it.
Yeah.
And I since then have never trusted Kelvin's opinions on movies.
Yeah.
So all it takes is one bad recommendation.
Yeah. We created this podcast for our friend Kelvin.
We did, yeah. So, if you're out there and listening, Kelvin, we love you, buddy, but your taste in movies is garbage.
Just horrible, yeah.
Dinner for Schmucks, like, come on, man.
He has surprised me from time to time.
Yes. He recommended to me The Platform, which was a great movie that I watched in 2021, I think.
I recommended that to him, so that's mine.
I'm taking that. Him.
Yeah,
you're stealing it from him.
But there's this one Will Smith one where he's a like he steals things. Focus.
I've never seen that.
So it was a 2015 movie with Will Smith and Margot Robbie, and all credit goes to Kelvin on this one for our little thing here. But Focus was an amazing movie just on like pickpockets and like the game of being a pickpocket.
Interesting.
And like how high it can go, and just like being like, it was a very good like con man team dynamic exploration. Focus was great.
I gotta check it out sometime then.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's streaming on anything. The other point that I want to make here in the reviews is that there's so many great lines and ideas. We've talked about them already, but even just some of the very cynical takes on relationships and life, like, I really appreciate that, because I think a lot of people think that I come off as a very bubbly or happy-go-lucky guy and I'm very positive all the time, but there is maybe a lot of a darker side to me that not a lot of other people see very often.
Harry.
Yeah. All right. Everybody has a dark side.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
But I have a very analytical mind, and my mind tends to probably often come up with the correct conclusions on things, but often those conclusions may be a little dark for other people.
So what I will say about that, I'm not going to say that this is a very interesting area, is there is an actual, there have been studies done on something called like depression realism, where people who are depressed or have had like variants of that kind of effect in their life, whatever. They actually do see reality more clearly, because it is inherently human to be optimistic, or else we wouldn't have kept going.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
what the study was is that they would take they would take a picture of you, and then they would Photoshop very realistically different versions of you, just very slightly. Some to make you more attractive, and some to make you slightly less attractive.
Right, like move your eyes apart or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
just
kind
by
of
like millimeters or and so the average person who didn't have like clinical depression or variants of it,
like
I
in
guess.
the past or like current kind of thing?
Current.
Okay.
So the people who were not clinically depressed, they all picked the slightly more attractive versions, which meant that they were more symmetrical versions
Right.
of the picture of their face.
Right.
While the depressed people actually picked the like very close to, if not the exact picture of themselves.
Yeah.
So, what does that like? That actually like maybe that's where you should look at Harry's character from is like why did he have these pessimistic attitudes throughout his life, and how did that impact him?
Yeah, and he's definitely depressed on and off throughout this, and especially in the latter half for sure.
Yeah.
Like I can probably say that at certain points in my life, I've probably been depressed, and maybe that does have an impact on how I look at life now. Like in 2022, kind of thing.
And like it's like it affects your humor in probably positive ways.
Yeah.
And it affects other things in negative ways, of course, but like there's so much of life to be learned from just it's just like the different perspectives. We see Sally's perspective and Harry's, and it's just like a juxtaposition, and then you see them meld together and separate and then come back a little bit, and it's just like they nailed like so many things within life.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to, is maybe you don't necessarily agree with the ideas presented about how male and females act and interact with each other, but I think you could definitely make an argument for that.
Yeah, and it's a great starting off point for the discussion. It brings up the discussion. Like if you and a new partner or potential partner watch this together, you're going to talk about it. Know what I mean? Like you're gonna be like, oh, what do you think? And then like it brings up this whole discussion, and it's like actually it's really cool because it doesn't just end with the movie. You're like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And it could be like a little dig, and then it like becomes like a playful thing, or it could be serious, and you might have a real discussion.
Yeah,
because it's because it's real.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Like it's such a good film to dissect and to discuss. I'm having a lot of fun on this discussion.
Yeah.
Really enjoying genuinely kind of our back and forth about some of this stuff. So, and
me
some
too.
of the weird tangents we've gone on this one.
Yeah, because that's what a good piece of art does.
Yeah.
It like if it was
it challenges your perspectives.
Yeah, and brings up like new ideas to think about, or old ones to rehash.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, should we wrap up with some of our favorite scenes? Just talk really quick about some of our favorite scenes, and then wrap up the podcast?
Yeah, I think I only have one favorite scene, and it is the unironic speed walking.
It's so great.
Yeah,
just, like the way that their bodies are moving, they're in like it's Harry and his friend Jess like in like spandex,
like walking
I don't
through
think I
like
can move like that.
No.
I think only people in the 80s can walk like that.
Yeah, there's like a comedic like a comedy movie where I want to say it's Rob Schneider does that. No, it's not Rob Schneider. Anyways, fucking what's his name? Billy Crystal. He reminds me of Rob Schneider. Like, there's like a certain.
Oh, don't do that to me.
I know, but I had no idea who Billy Crystal really was before I watched this.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like,
I could watch a little bit more Billy Crystal. I honestly really have only seen him in this Toy Story, Monsters Inc. and Princess Bride.
Yeah.
But I'd like to sound
City Slickers.
Yeah, City
Analyze
Slickers.
This.
Analyze This. Yeah, those ones. I'd really like to watch some more Billy.
Him
Crystal.
across from De Niro would probably be pretty good.
That would be
1999.
very interesting. Yeah. My favorite scenes are, like, obviously the I'll have what she's having scene is fantastic. The whole first car ride is great from start to finish.
Yeah.
When he spits out his grapes, I
Yeah.
die every time.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. It was just like I would not have expected to see that in such an old movie. Like it was just so comedic.
Yeah.
Because he was just being such an asshole.
Yeah.
And like obliviously.
Yeah, and he spits his grapes seeds all out the window. They're all over. He's like, I'm gonna roll my window down now.
Yeah. I've actually done that where I spit out a window that I thought was down, and I was like,
You know
I'll
what
roll
you've
the
done
window.
to me before is you spit out the front window and hit me in
In
through
the back,
back window.
yeah, you should never sit behind me.
Yeah.
I loved that Marie.
Carrie Fisher.
Yeah. I love that she had a Rolodex of all the guys' numbers, and then she had like a little system of like, oh, he's married. I better fold that corner over. Like it was.
You might use that later.
Yeah, and I felt like that. Like that's where I really saw Nora.
Ephron and her friends probably.
Yeah. Like one of her friends was exactly like that.
Yes.
Whether she did that in real life or not, it was like it was just like such a cool
It's
little.
those little subtleties that draw inspiration from real life ideas.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
concepts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it like Harry and Sally having those phone conversations while they're watching movies together, Casablanca, at the same time.
Yeah. Another scene, I guess, is when Harry and his friend Jess are at the Giants game, and they're all doing
the wave.
they're doing the wave.
I'm talking about a really depressing moment.
Completely depressed, talking about his like divorce and how that all is going on.
Yeah.
And then Harry's line, like his buddy's like, that's probably just a symptom of whatever, like and then he's like, the symptom is fucking my wife.
Yeah, and then they do the wave.
Yeah, and then they do the wave, like just.
Yeah, and she said to me, I don't think I ever loved you. And then they're like, whoop.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really great moments like that, like when they're at the baseball cages and he's like, you made her purr? And he's not listening anymore.
Meow.
Yeah, you made her meow?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, wait, you actually made her meow.
Yeah,
and he's like, that's not the point. Yeah.
There's just so many great funny moments and scenes and just so many heartwarming moments between Harry and Sally, like when they're in the museum and they're talking with the funny voices.
Yeah.
We're going to talk like this.
Yeah.
Pepper.
Yeah, and that scene felt like, I feel like I've seen that elsewhere
It's
more
because
recently.
you've probably done it in real life,
Yeah.
like just stupid little things like that with
and
your partner.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like you just like that was so. It like lifted the veil for the time of the movies. Like everything before that, there was this like pretty veil of romanticism.
Yeah, like
and then
filtered.
this kind of it was filtered, and this kind of like lifted that and was like, this is what silly humans are doing all the time.
Yes.
Like every human is being silly with their best friend or their significant other, which are often the same. But
Wait, are we the same? Are we both?
are we? We'll have a speed walk together later and figure that out.
No other better time to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah. Oh, Harry's dream. They were talking about dreams, which I feel like is something that like
Very
comes
common
up.
theme.
Yeah. And Harry's dream is that he's like being judged in the sex Olympics, and his like he has like the Russians gave him a 10, and then the Germans gave him a 10, and then for some reason his mom was voting for like the Chinese, and she gave him a 5.6. Like just that scene.
He has so many great lines, and that's what Billy Crystal brings to the film is all of those great lines. And like when he's talking to Sally, and he's like, "I think I have one of those tumors that are going around, those 3-day tumors."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I think I'm gonna practice like my groans, like
Yeah.
And then she hangs up on him. He's still doing it.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down too. His groaning. Yeah.
We got to give credit to Carrie Fisher for her repeated line of "I know you're right." Like, what did she say? You're right. You're right. I know you're right. Because everyone keeps saying he's never gonna leave her for you.
Yeah.
That's a good running joke.
Yeah, and that's a classic. Like, you see that now with rom-coms. There's always that friend who is just ridiculous in a certain way.
Yeah.
Especially with it, like that type of thing where they're like, "Why are you doing this?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "I can't help it."
Another one of my favorite scenes for choreographing purposes alone is the 4 phone calls happening simultaneously, like the 4 of them on the phone.
Yes.
It's just so well timed and shot.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that would have taken to do, but just every character is hitting their lines at exactly the right time to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah.
And yeah, you see that from time to time, but I feel like that one was probably shot like live.
I think it would have had to have been.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you do it. I think you almost have to have like the 3 different rooms.
Yeah.
And you have each person going, and like you can hear like legitimately what each person is saying.
Yeah, because like we've all seen other like montages of like 6 different people in a group call, and everyone's like doing different things. But I feel like this one was like happening because. And it felt real, like it was like an 80s conversation of 2 people at like telephone booths or something like that calling their friends who are in the bed together. Yeah.
Really great scene, really well choreographed. Again, I'd love to see it. So partway through the film, probably about 45 minutes in, I thought to myself, I wonder if my DVD has a commentary on this, because I've seen this so many times that I'd be really interested in hearing the commentary over this at this point.
Yeah.
Just for that one scene even alone, just to understand how they filmed that. One thing I'll say, again, positive for the film, is that it doesn't drag ever, it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it's an hour and a half, and that's perfect. That's all you need for this kind of film.
Yeah, exactly. Almost every piece of dialogue was warranted.
Yes.
It had to be there.
There was no fluff.
Yeah.
It never felt like there was fluff in it.
Yeah, and their monologues, like they were often very monologous, if you will.
Yeah.
Because one of them would be telling a story to the other.
Yeah.
Or explaining their opinion, and it was going on for like quite a bit, but it was just like the right amount.
Yeah, it's not like a Midnight Mass if you want to compare that. I don't know that you've watched that.
I haven't yet. You keep
really
bringing
great.
it up, but
the monologues, there are some times where it feels like, okay, like I'm starting to kind of come out of this because of how long this person is going on. While the other person's just sitting there. It's weird. But anyway, diving back into When Harry Met Sally, what do you think about this as a breakup movie? Do you think that this would hold up as a breakup movie? Because when I think breakup
gives you
movies,
hope.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that if you
gives you realism and hope, and like realistically, if you break up with someone or get divorced, it's gonna take a while to get over it, and you're gonna experience that in different ways, and this portrays that.
Yeah, and you're really gonna feel for Harry most of the time, but even Sally at certain points too, when life events happen.
She has a bigger breakdown than Harry ever did. Harry's
it all happens all at once.
Yeah, Harry's was drawn out. Hers was a sudden realization that she was still holding on to something.
I don't think you can maybe necessarily put it in the greats of breakup movies, but I think you could definitely slot it in if you've run out.
yeah, definitely.
So
another just like line or interesting scene was when Sally was talking about why she originally, her and her previous guy broke up. And she's like, she always wanted to like be single and have be with this person and not have kids because they wanted to like be able to fly off to Rome any weekend or like have sex on the kitchen floor.
Yeah.
And Harry is like, so did you ever have sex on the kitchen floor?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, what? We never went to Rome. And we had cold, hard Mexican tiles in the kitchen.
Just a cold, hard Mexican tile floor.
And it was just like that's realistic.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's just so many genuine thoughts and ideas
because like that scene was like you imagine yourself doing this
Yes.
with your person.
Yeah, especially
then-
early on in the relationship when you
Yeah.
guys have all these crazy ideas of things
Yeah.
you guys are going to do, and not everything works out the way you want it to.
Yeah, and like sometimes the initial like beginning is crazy and you
Yeah.
do all these crazy things, but then like settling into life, it brings you into a different thing, and then like you have ups and downs, and like you have those moments still.
Yeah.
It's just not all that you imagined,
Yeah.
and maybe you didn't do it right.
And maybe
or
that's not
whatever.
what you want in the first place. Maybe
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
that's what you want, but
Yeah, like the perception of what you want is, I think, what breaks down between both of them,
yeah.
like individually, and then that's when they realize, like, okay, like I was against this for no reason.
Yeah, that's actually on this viewing. One question I thought about more is like why is Harry so against this at this point in time? Honestly, I think the closest I come up to with is that he's just so cynical and he's just still so in his head about what he thinks
Yeah.
a relationship is and where things are going to go in relationships, and he doesn't want to ruin such a great relationship that he has with Sally.
Yeah, and like he's scared because
Yeah, he doesn't want to take a risk.
yeah, because he's used to doing the same thing over and
Yep.
over again, and you see it exactly when he wakes up, when they wake up, and he gets dressed and leaves in the morning, and he's like I don't, like, you could feel it in his like
Yes.
like his bones, like he cannot not do that.
Yes.
And so it takes him a while to like break through that, and Sally's so hurt from it that it takes them like months to get through to where they
Yeah, it
end
takes
up.
a full year, over a year.
Yeah.
Um,
Just one more line that was great was
Yeah.
when Sally was like having her breakdown, and she's like, "I'm gonna be 40," and he's like,
when?
"Yeah," he's like, "When?" And she's like, "Someday."
In like 8 years.
Yeah. He's like, it's like you're 32, but she like feels it all right now.
Yeah.
Just like good comedic delivery and
Yeah.
like realism in there too.
Yeah, and the way she says certain things while she's crying. I'm hideous.
Yeah. One more line.
Okay.
I get so stuck on the lines. Like
Yeah.
one-liners I just love.
Yeah,
But,
and this one's chock full of them.
it's
That's
so full. And one of them is like he was like talking about how he's sick of like going to clubs and doing the white man's overbite.
yeah.
And like I like as soon as he did that, I was like, that is so true, and it is so both you and Kelvin.
I knew you were gonna say that about me
Yes,
as soon as you started down that road.
Yeah, like the Blake with
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Blake. I've got a dance move
Yeah.
named after me,
Yeah.
by the way, everybody on this podcast. So
If we ever do a video, I'm gonna show everyone. I'm gonna show the
at this
world
point,
the Blake.
Jason does do the Blake better than the
Yeah,
Blake can do the Blake.
yeah.
Actually, one more line that I have is in that scene where they're crying, they're upset, and she's saying how it's different for men with kids and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, it's different for men. Charlie Chaplin had kids when he was in his 70s. and Harry goes, yeah, but he couldn't pick them up.
yeah.
I die every time in that line.
Yeah, that was good. It's just so much, like, it's like every other line is either funny or like seriously
Sincere.
real. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like all of them are sincere.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's a great
They cut
movie.
deep or they make you laugh really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. Good balance.
It's a great balance.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good
Yeah.
spot to wrap it up. Honestly, like, I hope we've convinced you to watch this at some point. I wish
Yeah.
it was on streaming on more
And
platforms.
I
But
I hope there's some people that have listened to it and actually like seen the movie and that, or like paused to watch the movie and
Yeah.
then listen to the discussion, because like this is, I love talking after the movie.
yes.
I hate people who talk during the movie.
Oh man, don't even get me
Don't
started.
even don't do it. But yeah, like the discussion after, like this is what we get excited about, so that's
Yeah.
what that's what this podcast is really about. So and like this change of format is trying to get more into that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I think it's time to wrap it up. Next
Mm-hmm.
week's episode. Usually, you and I announce the next episode and what we're doing next. This time, it's going to be a mystery, and the mystery is whether we're doing a music or a mystery film.
Yeah, musical or mystery or music
or musical mystery.
A musical
Woo!
mystery. Goddamn. Yeah.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments, maybe if you're interested or one or the other. I think you and I have had some side discussions a little bit and maybe thought of maybe something that we'd be interested in doing. But if somebody has any suggestions, let us know.
Yeah, definitely. We're pumped to be doing this and really hope that some of these new viewers are watching these old movies.
I'm an idiot. I forgot to say this earlier.
What?
Freaking congrats on the 10th episode, man. We did it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we made it to the 10th episode.
Fucking right, but...
Yeah. Not many podcasts make it to here. It's like 95% of podcasts fail before this. We're still going. Our 300, 400 viewers.
Yeah, keep watching. You have to.
Stay tuned for more. We're only going to get worse from here.
No, we're getting better each time, I think.
Yeah, I think we are too. I think the flow is getting a little bit better. My flow's definitely growing.
Yeah, it very much is, yeah.
But anyway, that's it for this episode. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this, and if you checked it out because of us. I'd love to hear some feedback about, I've never seen this movie and you've convinced us to watch it.
Yeah, or any other like specific things that we missed that are like super cool about anything that we've discussed, any movie we've discussed.
Yeah.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, it's a pretty good time. Let's wrap her up.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
I don't know if I feel comfortable in this room. It's really hot in here now.
I gotta pee. I don't know.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.